This is the minor side of life. And now, Rob Sternberg.
Thank you, Pete, and we're so glad you're with us here on the minor side. This is where we talk candidly about the business and promotional aspect of minor league sports. Each episode, you'll hear from a different guest who's either worked in a minor league office or played or performed on a minor league stage. We talk about how they got started, what they learned along the way, and of course, some opinions and personal stories as well. If you've worked in minor league sports or wanted to know what it's like, then this is the show for you. For me, from the Texas League and the Eastern League to the PCL and now the International League, I'll bring almost a decade of minor league baseball stories and experience to the table, and very much looking forward to sharing them with you. If you are listening to this as it is originally released, thank you so much for the support. A reminder that this episode is part of a bigger release or drop. And I hate that fucking term, but either way, hopefully you get it. They're over at minorside.com, so once you're done, hopefully you could head on over there or wherever you listen to podcasts and search Minor Side and check out the rest. For this episode, though, we will talk to Gary Green. As far as a formal introduction, Gary is the principal owner of the Omaha Storm Chasers, AAA affiliate of the Royals. Gary has gone on to attain ownership stakes in the Richmond Flying Squirrels and Montgomery Biscuits, but it does not end there for Mr. Green. He also led a group to purchase Baseball America just a few years ago, and just a few weeks ago, it was Gary in the news as being in the process. Just a few weeks ago, Gary was in the process, or is in the process, I should say, bringing a USL Soccer team into existence to play at Werner Park. It's the same facility as the Storm Chasers. Believe it or not, Gary also has an executive producer credit in the ESPN 30 for 30 on Doc and Daryl. Hopefully we'll get into that. That's Gooden and Strawberry. So Gary, you're a real renaissance man, if you will. And before we bring you on, Gary, the first time I spoke with Gary, it was shortly after I agreed to come and work for the Omaha Storm Chasers. This was back in early 2014. And Gary, you were kind enough to give me a call and say hello, really just introducing yourself. It meant a lot then, and I guess it still does now. I'm sharing it. And he's with us now. Gary, how you doing?
Great. How you doing?
Not too bad. Excited to talk to you on this level. I know we've certainly crossed paths a bunch, and really just excited to pick your brain here.
Well, I feel honored to be on your first podcast.
Well, goddamn, Gary, this, we just said this isn't the first one, but yes, it'll be part of the first group released here on minorside.com. It'll be a group of the first. And thank you for taking the giant leap of faith here. And how's that sound? You're still the group of the first.
Okay, I'm excited to be part of that elite group.
Well, it is elite. I guess to start, in my research for this here, I didn't realize until now, I guess, that a lot of your involvement from an ownership standpoint in minor league sports really only took place in the last 10 years or so. I know you're involved with your partner, business partner, I should say, and that's a great story in and of itself. But you and your business partner, Larry Botel, you guys more or less decided to get into the minor league baseball business together. What does that process entail?
Well, we own three teams, and it's been three different situations each time. So in Richmond, the Braves had left very suddenly the year before and moved to Gwinnett. And when they did that, the Richmond market was starved for baseball. And I don't think they realized how badly they needed baseball till the Braves left, because I don't think that the market did a great job supporting that team. And I don't think the Braves did a good job doing anything other than having a developmental team with some great players, Hall of Famers over the years. But they didn't bring the carnival to the ballpark. They didn't bring the circus to the ballpark like so much that happens now. You need to give the fans so much more than just a game. You need to give them a full entertainment package of as many different things as possible. So recognizing that Richmond was the largest city in the country without any professional sports team, we realized very early on that if we could nail down that territory by moving the team there, that we had a good chance for success. So we negotiated a deal and we did that contingent on moving the team. And so that's how we analyzed that. And that's how we felt like we were about to make a good decision on buying that and moving the team there.
So the situation in Connecticut, they were losing money, or what was the story in Connecticut?
Yeah, they were losing money. They needed to move, and and they wanted to get the Richmond territory. Um, Minor League Baseball and the Eastern League had a buyer in Richmond that fell through. It didn't happen. And so many times in these deals, there's some type of event that happens that creates a buying opportunity. So, for instance, a buyer fell through in Richmond, and we needed to come in, and there was some urgency. So, Lou DiBella was able to give us a great deal. We recognized very early on that he would be a great partner, and so that happened. There's in other deals, in a couple of the other deals we did, and this is what I learned. A lot of times during divorce, a couple will need to liquefy their assets, and when that happens, you kind of have an urgent seller. One, that's very important, and two, kind of a little bit of a distress seller because the assets need to be liquidated quickly. So I kid around sometimes that we should canvass the matrimonial lawyers to see if there's any good deals out there.
Well, I guess that happened with the Dodgers too around the same time.
Yeah, exactly. Good point. I didn't even think of that. Good point.
Well, I guess, believe it or not, Gary, I'm not a rich man, so my finance strategy is not too refined. So help me out a little bit. How do you find a distressed seller? Is there a distressed sellers are us, or how do you really find a diamond in the rough? Really,
you just spend the time. You look, and when I say distress, there's nothing distress in baseball that's going to give you such a heavy discount. So, it's somebody who's motivated to move quickly is my definition of distress in baseball, because there's really no true distress, because baseball has such stringent rules as far as the amount of debt that you could have and on ownership that there really is no true distress. It's more a motivated seller than it is distress.
So I'm sure, no doubt, that some of your previous business experience has been a factor. Obviously, really, what are some other ideas that you carried over that have served you well in the minor league landscape, whether it's from the operations end of a team or the negotiation to acquire one?
A lot of owners come in; they've been successful in other businesses, and they just assume they're going to apply their business success to minor league baseball, and that they know better than everybody else, or the guys in the business. And what happens to a lot of guys like that, owners like that, is that they kind of get their ass handed to them because they don't know the business, and it's very different. And I think it's very important for anybody who's had enough success in other businesses to be able to afford to buy a team, that they sit back, watch, and listen and learn, and watch and learn from the people that have been in the business for 20 years, 25 years. Listen to the Marty Corderos, the Chuck Dominoes, the Todd Parnells, Barney. There's so much knowledge out there that is specific to baseball that once you get that base of knowledge, you can apply your business skill to that. But you need to get that base of knowledge first. And I'm a big believer in Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000 hour rule, that if you spend 10,000 hours doing anything, you could become an expert in it. So really just dive in with your time and to everything to do with the organization, and just learn it.
And I guess in that process, and I'm not sure where you are in that 10,000 hours, but in that process, and I realize we haven't exactly divulged the environment you came from, but you built a business based in Manhattan. Alliance Building Services provides maintenance, security, restoration, et cetera, for what I assume to be large buildings in New York City, commercial buildings. But now getting into the baseball business, can you describe the moment that was like the aha moment, sort of like I'm not dealing with the building services people right here. So you're sitting in these meetings, whether they're staff meetings or meeting with the top level executives, and you hear some story and you're like, well, what the hell is this? I remember one time, it may have been in Omaha, it may not have been. But the story was that there was a fan, always starts that way, in the process of being escorted out of the building, older sort of guy with his wife, and he had one of those big bucket drinks with the fruit hanging off of it, fruity bucket drink, I guess. And apparently he had vomited in the bucket. And goddamn, he wouldn't let go even as he was being ushered out of the ballpark. And his wife, meanwhile, is yelling at whoever's got him. No, his teeth are in there. His teeth are in there. Something like that. Just for example, Gary, something like that never happened to you in a previous walk of life.
No, but I can tell you, and I don't think that was Omaha. Nobody ever told me that one. But at Citi Field, there was somebody who lost some jewelry in the automatic flush toilet. And when they reached for it, from what I understand, their arm got stuck in the toilet. So, again, we do the cleaning at Citi Field, not our fault, but we were on the job to get that person's arm out of the toilet without having to amputate. I'm kidding.
and it was successful.
I believe so. Yes.
That's great to hear today, especially today of all days. I guess we can get into Omaha a bit either way. Can you talk about the acquisition process in Omaha? I know you got to work with Warren Buffett, who was a part of the previous group. And so tell us a little bit about that. And in Richmond, you guys were relocating the team, whereas in Omaha, you weren't relocating it, but they had just recently moved out of an area that was a little closer to downtown into more of a suburban or rural setting. And certainly it started out rural, of course, but it's grown over the years. All that being said, can you just compare those scenarios as well?
Yes, all the heavy lifting had been done by the prior ownership with Bill Shea and Alan Stein and Marty as far as moving the ballpark from downtown, or not from downtown, from Rosenblatt, out to Sarpy. And, they had gone through all the different steps of possibly moving to Texas. And then they came up with Warner Park and went through that. And then what we saw was a different type of situation that Richmond had. It was a stabilized situation with an area with a growing population, with a long-term affiliation with the Royals, which was three hours plus away, and a management team that we felt and feel strongly about. So it was a little more stabilized situation, and everyone's different, and we'll get into Montgomery in a second. I'll tell you why that's different. So that's why we were interested in that. And a funny little story about it is that we had the opportunity to meet with the great Warren Buffett, and we were told that, hey, if you're interested, and there's a bid that's close, you'll meet with Mr. Buffett. And immediately, my numbers, the numbers guy in my head said, well, people pay $3 million for this meeting. So if we come close, I'll get the meeting and I'll be $3 million ahead. So turns out we met with him 6 or 7 times. So, that might be $20 million worth of meetings right there.
What'd he say?
He said a lot of great things, but I think the thing that he said that was most impactful on me was that when I asked him, how the community would be with a New Yorker owning the team, he said to me that you may own the team on paper, but this team belongs to Omaha, and you should never forget that.
Huh, wow, that's interesting, especially given the situation that had gone on there in the previous few years, where with the move from Rosenblatt to what became Warner Park.
No, absolutely. He owned the team so that Rosenblatt would have an ongoing tenant, so that the upkeep would be there to keep the College World Series there. Once the College World Series moved to TD Ameritrade downtown, there was no civic reason for him to own the team anymore. So it was time for him and his group to sell.
So that's a stadium situation in and of itself. And I guess before we get too far ahead, and as long as we're on the subject of stadiums, I did want to get your take on the stadium situation in Richmond. You sort of alluded to it earlier.
Well, Southern politics is a business that I don't really understand. So it's just Southern politics have their own different style and way and going and doing things. And the Richmond political scene has been very interesting, to say the least. I am not hands-on in that process. That's Lou DiBella. our managing partner. But as great as Sarpy County has been, and all the public works projects in Omaha that have gotten done, it's really incredible what Sarpy and Omaha have done. Richmond has been the opposite. And while they did spend millions of dollars to build a practice facility for the Redskins, they promised us something before we got there. And now there have been so much drama with the politics there that it hasn't happened. We have still been doing incredible there. And the market's great, and we don't regret it for a second. But we would have thought the ballpark would have been constructed and delivered by now.
I remember Richmond being a powerhouse during the time when I was first getting into the industry. My first full-time deal was in Binghamton in the Eastern League as well. Given the stadium situation, though, a lot of times we wind up selling the experience of the ballpark. I've never been there, and Barney, who's hands-on there, I'm guessing there are versions of amenities like a kids area, like concessions and stuff like that. But in your own eyes, what is the formula for success there without the 2019 version of a minor league facility's bells and whistles?
Oh, it's a great question. So the population there, every market's different. I think the population there and the attendance there is more of a millennial attendance. It's more of a young professional. We get the families as well, though. So it's really being able to grab multiple demographics in that area, and they have set up some what are they say lipstick on a pig. I think that's the phrase that's used. We've really been able to put lipstick on a pig there, and make it fun for the family and fun for businesses and fun for the young folks and the millennials and the empty nesters as well.
And you've mentioned Barney yourself. Again, he is part of the episodes over at minorside.com. I'd be remiss if I did not ask you to describe him yourself, to describe Barney.
Thank you for not putting him on with me. I might not have been able to get a word in. So Barney is, how do you describe Barney? He's the funny pants guy. He's Mr. Minor League Baseball, and he's everything that's fun about minor league baseball. And that's the best way to describe Barney.
And I feel like, and I've only heard him speak a few times at minor league functions and stuff like that, and met with him briefly. But I've always thought, though, especially after listening to him speak, that it's sort of a situation where there's a lot more to him. There's a lot more knowledge, et cetera, underneath there, that he's a real bright guy.
Oh, no, absolutely. And he's involved with running our our Montgomery team that we're also partners with Lou DiBella on. And his energy and his fun that he brings, not just to the fans, but to the staff, it's pretty amazing.
And in terms of staffs, I'm curious what you have noticed about minor league baseball staffs in general, especially compared to some of the staffs from other lines of businesses that you're also familiar with. To me, as a member of us, if that makes sense, we can be a jack of all trades, master of none sometimes, where we don't necessarily have all the luxuries, but at the same time, we'll do whatever you want and run through a wall if that's what it takes, if anyone asks, basically. What do you think?
Yeah, no, exactly. No, you can be jack of all trades, masters of quite a few things. But, for me, anybody who's in their 20s who's looking for great business experience, I don't know of any other industry where you can get somebody in their early 20s getting so much responsibility and decision making as you can in minor league baseball. I mean, you have kids. When I say kids, I'm 50, almost 54, but kids who are in decision making ability as far as other families. Basically, if thousands of people every night they're on the line, and when you're in MILB, kind of all eyes are on you. So to me, it's a great position where you learn by doing, as opposed to strictly learning by listening or following. You're on the firing line at an earlier age than most other industries. You work in MILB, you know this. You have to be ready to give up your summers, and summer is it's the most fun time of year. And you have to be with a a spouse or significant other that understands that that's your life. And if you don't know that going in, then that's problematic. And you really need to love being part of a team. And we see some folks leave our teams and go to work not in the sports business, and they're anxious to come back because they miss it, and they don't mind giving up their summers. But we also see some folks who leave the business and are thrilled because now they have their summers back. So it depends. For me, I always need to be involved with the team, no matter what age I am, no matter how retired I am. I need to have that blood flowing through my veins, as far as being involved with the minimum of one team, always.
And with that, I mean, I wouldn't describe you as completely a hands-on owner in every department and every little decision. But how would you describe yourself? What kind of owner would you say that you are?
Oh, that's a great question. I would say that I'm not a hands-off owner, but I think the key to management of any organization is to hire good people and then stay out of their way and pick the spots where you think they need help.
And give me an example of how that's more or less been enacted over the years. How about an example?
Okay, so for instance, we had a parking issue in Omaha, and there was a long history of negotiation there with current management, and we were able to take a fresh look. We weren't part of the conversations previously, and we were able to retain the parking that we felt like we were entitled to from the county, but it was a conversation that was a little tense at first, but then we all got on the same page. And sometimes when you have that kind of tension, it can make you closer. So we had some tension there, and we ended up getting the parking spaces that we needed. And I felt like that was a spot where we needed to jump in. And you got to pick your spots, because if you pick too many spots, then you start stepping on good people's toes. And if you step on good people's toes too many times, they tend to leave.
Simply put, and how about this? If it hasn't happened yet, that's fine. But what is like a signature of yours, something that the public can see, whether it's anything, promotions, marketing, PR, food items, merch items? What would you say is a Gary Green signature to this point?
I mean, look, my signature is just following the footsteps of the people that I've learned from, which, as I said before, guys like Chuck Domino, Barney, Marty Cordero. And, so I wouldn't say it's my signature. It's always fans first. And what I always say is it's great to buy a team because you love the game, but that's not enough. If you don't love the fans of the game, then you shouldn't own a team, and you shouldn't be trusted with owning a team. You need to love the fans just as much as you love the game itself. Great question.
Oh, we do appreciate the insight for sure.
These are the best questions I think I've had in a long time.
I mean, that's what you get here on the minor side of life.
I would like to know, from a competitive standpoint, if my answers are better or worse than Barney's.
Well, the entire episode is up over at minorside.com, and I believe wherever you listen to podcasts. I do want to talk about Montgomery, though. You're working with Barney over there as well. Is that right? Yes.
He's running that with Lou DiBella, and then obviously he's in Richmond as well. So. Montgomery is something else that we didn't get to talk about. That's a situation where there was a team that was extremely successful when they opened. I forget what year they opened the ballpark, but they did very well.
Mid-2000s.
And then things started to tail off, and it just needed some new blood. That's all. It needed some new blood, and we kind of took historically what worked there, got rid of what didn't work there, and it's on the upswing. It's on the upswing right now.
And now, after a relocation and a pair of acquisitions in minor league baseball, for the first time, you're going to have the opportunity to build your own office in terms of a sports franchise. You're creating a USL Soccer franchise from scratch, and I guess you will have parts of the Omaha office, or how is that going to work out?
Some overlap and a lot of new staff. We're going to be doing 2.2 million improvements to the park to make it soccer friendly, retrofitted for soccer. And one thing I learned there is that buying an expansion franchise is a lot more work than buying an existing franchise. When you buy an existing team, you're jumping on a moving train. When you buy an expansion team, you have to build the train and then get everybody to jump on it.
And if you want to sort of get into the weeds with that in just a few minutes, what are some examples of that? What's your vision with the USL in Omaha, and why does it make sense, you think?
Great question. My vision of it is that the Storm Chasers, the baseball team, really reaches out to the families and the empty nesters really strongly. And we get the kids up until the time they go to college. Soccer hits on more of a millennial fan base and a Latino fan base. So we want to reach all of Omaha instead of certain pockets of Omaha. And that's why Sarpy County and the Sarpy County commissioners are so interested in us doing this, because we want to make Sarpy an area for all of Omaha, not just all the Omaha Metro, not just families and not just kids. So we feel like there's a tremendous cross-selling opportunity, because once fans come out for soccer, they'll realize how great our park is, and we can get them interested in baseball too. So it made sense for a ton of reasons, and especially with the popularity of soccer being what it is and the World Cup coming in 2026, we see what's happened in New Mexico. We're seeing what happened in Memphis, in Louisville, in Cincinnati, and the Omaha Metro is not an MLS city, not with the population they have, but there's a buzz and there's excitement about this that is really exciting.
And I understand you guys are going to handle the player personnel side of the deal as well. That's a bit of a change up. Is that right?
Yes, we hired a coach who is a local legend for UNO and work with Creighton Soccer as well. And Jason Mims, our head coach, he's excited to come back to Omaha, and he realized that he wanted to come back. He's getting married, and his wife wants to be in Omaha. And once you're a staple in Omaha, it's hard to leave. It's such a great community.
It's amazing. Having been there just a couple of years, what people don't know, people hear Nebraska and they almost lose their shit. But obviously you don't know what you don't know. They're being ignorant. But I do sort of want to wind down a bit, though. And of course, thanks again for the time. But wanted to get into Baseball America, obviously a venerable publication that you were able to acquire. What's coming up over there with Baseball America?
Okay, so Baseball America is something we didn't touch on. Our digital platform is growing leaps and bounds there, and it's very rewarding and exciting for me, because it's such an iconic brand, and to grow the game, and we feel like we're growing minor league baseball, and we're growing Major League Baseball. And what's very exciting for me is the fact that MLB players now are hitting the MLB younger and younger, and their primes, used to be 27 to 32 was a player's prime. That's dropping down dramatically. And we're seeing now a player's prime is 23, 24 to 28. And what that means is that minor league talent is turning into major league talent more quickly than it had before. And what that means is, because Baseball America is really a niche player in MILB, high school, college, what it means is that the players that we're covering in our niche are converting into MLB talent so much more quickly. I feel like there's a bigger demand for it now. And I feel like the role we play in the baseball landscape is much larger because of that.
You also seem, though, in turn to have a shorter window to be able to cover them. Like there are some instances where someone will sort of zip through an organization, and that's kind of like what you're describing. Whereas in the past, you could usually count on a guy like in Northwest Arkansas. We knew we were going to have Eric Hosmer for about half a year, and then he'll move up. This past year with the Iron Pigs, or this current year, I should say. Geez, now we've had a reliever, J.D. Hammer, a couple of games, and he went up. Also has to do with the needs of the organization at the big league level, obviously, but also roster manipulation too these days. We had Adam Hazley, a former top prospect for us, for the Phillies. He joined the team on the road and was up in Philly in the blink of an eye. He'd been back up and down since then, but we barely had him.
But, we locate these kids so early on. For instance, Wander Franco, he was virtually unknown a few years ago. He's now our top one or two minor league player and MLB player, and he's going to be in the MLB for the next 2 years. And our readers count on us to find the diamonds in the rough. Everybody can look at the top 100 prospects and go from there. But our writers are the smartest baseball minds in the country, and when we lose writers, we don't lose them to other publications. We lose them to major league teams because the major league teams think so much about their knowledge and talent. And that speaks volumes of why Baseball America is such a great platform and publication for us.
A final question, I promise, and I'll make it a good one. Do you get to pick who's on the cover?
I do not get to pick who's on the cover. Very early on, our editor and publisher, BJ Schechter, explained to me that as the owner, there's got to be a Chinese wall between what I want, my point of view. So I've respected that, and I did ask if I could help choose the players for the game. I'm drawing a blank on what the name of the game is. The rookie game, the minor league game at the
Futures game.
Futures game. Yes, I should know that. The Futures game, which is really one of our key events for Baseball America, and he had told me that I would not be able to choose. That it didn't matter that I owned the publication, that I was biased, and that I would not be able to choose. And he was absolutely right on both accounts.
Seems like a bad deal to me. Then I don't know.
Yeah, Pete Alonso would have been on the team 3 years ago if it was up to me.
Well, again, we appreciate the time, and of course, we wish you luck with all the endeavors you have going on. We missed out on Doc and Darryl. Maybe next time. Either way, we definitely hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you, Gary.
I wish you a lot of luck too. You asked some great questions and definitely went deeper than most. So good luck with this.
Well, sounds good, and obviously that's what we hope to deliver. The great Gary Green here on the minor side of life. And as we kick off the minor side, we're going to be dropping a lot of material. Please check it out. Part of this release, as we mentioned, is also a chat with the aforementioned Barney, Todd Parnell. With his over 30 years in the business, we'll dive into how he developed a knack for producing winners. Off the field, of course, we talk what old school minor league baseball was like. Obviously, we talk Barney pants, but also what some of his favorite promotions were, and a whole lot more. Of course, don't you dare miss it over at minorside.com. Other than that, if you liked what you heard here today or didn't, the show is at The Minor Side on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. For me, I'm Rob Sternberg at Rob Sternberg on Twitter. And thank you so much for listening. For the rest, here's the great Pete Candianis. He's a real nice guy.
This has been a presentation of The Minor Side of Life. We kindly ask for your support of this program by subscribing to the show on your preferred podcast player, joining the newsletter list at minorside.com, and following The Minor Side on social media. Plus, you can always visit theminorside.com for exclusive content and more. Thank you for listening.